Hello and welcome to month 11 of our 2023 $5 quilt club. We are going to be doing the 4 at a time flying geese method. So this is a flying geese where you have a rectangle with a triangle in the middle. This one's already been nicely trimmed. Let me show you what we're going to do. So just like if you visit our website, this is what you'll see. It'll have the instructions. We're going to cut the blue fabric down to 6.25 inches square. So here I have a ruler, and I'm just going to trim down two sides of my fabric, just like this. So I have a perfect side right there, and then I'm going to move my ruler down to 6.25 on both sides, keeping it in place, and then cutting it all this way. So then I have a perfect 6.25 inch square. You're going to want to do this for both of the blue squares that are in your kit. So I have two different blue solids just like you should have. This one I've already done. This one we're going to be doing in this video. You should also have a strip of black that you're going to need to cut into 8 3.5 inch squares. So I only need 4 because I've already done that. So I have 4 layers of fabric here. So I'm going to trim this down. I just happen to have a 3.5 inch block lock ruler that I'm going to use because it's the right size. I'm going to try to keep it in place without moving it so that I get the most accurate block or squares. So there's my 4 3.5 inch squares. Okay, so at this point, we are going to trace a line across each one of our black squares. So here I just have a simple chalk pen. It's mechanical, so the lead comes out, which is really nice. This is a seam guide template here from Creative Grids. So it you can trace a line in the center and then also on either side. So I have pink chalk in here, and that shows up nicely. So once you have that one done, then you can, if you need, you can extend that line all the way across. If you don't have one of these guys, you can really use any ruler. So here I'll just do it with this one. The Creative Grids Creative Grids rulers are really nice because it's almost shaded right here on the quarter, so that you can really easily see where that needs to go. But you're going to need to draw a line from corner to corner, and you are just going to go straight across. Try not to stretch the fabric so you can push down on the ruler. If you have a felt tip pen, those ones work out really nice because they're not going to pull the grain of fabric. And then you're going to draw another line, 1/4 inch on that side, and then 1/4 inch on this side. So just line that up, and then we have the same thing with that. So you can do that with a regular ruler or this handy dandy already cut one. So once we have all 4 of them marked, we're going to line them up on our large square. And I'm going to be using high contrast thread so that you guys can see this really nicely. And then we are going to be sewing straight. These lines should match up really nicely. Okay, there we go. So if you want, you can go ahead and stick some pins in here to help keep that steady. I'm just going to eyeball it here, and I'm going to move this over. I'm going to move my needle position. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so now I'm going to just stitch. I really want to stitch kind of in between these lines. So I do not want to go past the outer line. I do not want to cut on this line or sew on this line because this is our cutting line. So this is our sewing line, and we really want to hit for anything right next to it, but do not pass that line. So not on the outside, but not on that center line. So I have my stitch length here set to, because I'm using a high contrast thread, I do like to set my stitch length to be 1.8. And then, here we're going really slow, I'm going to increase the speed here. So I'm just going to stitch all the way across. Now I'm going to do that for both sides. So you can take your time. I have a walking foot on because we are sewing across the bias here. And if you don't use a walking foot, you can really stretch out your fabric, right? So the bias stretches a whole lot, and across the grain this way doesn't stretch at all. With the grain, it stretches a tiny bit. So we don't want to stretch out our fabric, so I do have my walking foot or AccuFeed foot on to help prevent that. But you can see how I stitch just next to that line, but certainly not past it. So I'm going to repeat that for the other side, and then it comes the fun part, where we get to cut it apart and do it again. So I'm just going to increase this. It looks like the camera's jiggling a lot. All right, cut my threads. Okay, so that was my example piece, but my okay, here is my next square here. Make sure that I get the lines nice. Okay, I only have one more square to do this to. So you can alternatively just put your 1/4 inch line on the points of your square, and then you have that one. Okay, I don't know what happened to my other square, so I'm gonna have to cut another one. But okay, so once you get this part that done, then you're gonna need to cut on our center line. So I don't have a ruler right here that's long enough, so I'm just gonna slide this one across. So now that one, this is halfway there. So now we're gonna want to press these to this side, and then we're going to stick this one on this corner that hasn't been done yet. And then we're going to repeat the same action. If you use a hot iron to press these, it won't be trying to flop back. So I do recommend pressing this with a hot iron, maybe using spray starch if you've already used it. If not, it will shrink your pieces. So please be cautious about the use of that. Okay, so I'm going to make sure my seam allowance is all facing the same way, and I'm going to repeat the same thing. We're just going to stitch right next to that line, but not past it. Okay, I'm going to cut my threads and repeat the same thing down this side. So we're going to need 8 flying geese for this block. Okay, now this is so fun. You can eyeball it, or you can use your ruler, get a nice straight line. So now we have 2 flying geese from that same piece. So you repeat that for your last piece where you put your square, line up your edges, and do the exact same thing. So that way you'll have it for both blues, and it should yield 8 flying geese. Okay, so once you get to this point, I do like to press it with a hot iron because this is no fun to try to cut when it's all floppy. So these ones have already been pressed, so we'll go over that. So on the website, in the instruction part, it does say that you're supposed to trim the flying geese, FG is flying geese, down to 2 7/8 by 5 1/4. So we're going to trim this down to 2 7/8 by 5 1/4. So on this block, you can see I have already marked the center so that I can find, I don't want to trim off my point at all. This point should be a 1/4 inch from the edge, and then these seams should be directly on the corners. So I could trim it up this way and slice this off, but then it's not going to be, or 5 1/4, right? It's not going to look great at all because I'm going to lose this point right here. It's not going to come anywhere close to where it needs to go. So trimming is going to be very important to make sure that you are you're trimming it so that this point, you can line it up with the 1/4 point on your ruler so that you're not going to lose any of your points. All right, so I'm going to trim that off because that is in the proper place where it's a 1/4 inch from the point. So just like this one. So when I put the 1/4 inch mark on the flying geese there at the top, it is right at that point. So that's what we want there. So if it helps, you can draw that center line so that you can put the middle of your block, half a 2 7/8 right, I'm sorry, half a 5 1/4 on there so that you can have it lined up perfectly on your block. So half of 5 1/4 is what, 2 point, so it'd be 2.5 plus an eighth. So 2 5/8 would be the center point. So that is right here. So if I put 2 5/8 right on the point of the triangle, then I know I can slice this off right here. And then I'm going to flip it around and do the same thing. So I'm going to make sure that's at 5 1/4 and 2 5/8. That way everything will be wonderful, and we will not lose any of our points. So you'll also notice that at least on this Quilter Select ruler, you will have this really nice 45-degree angle, and it should line up with your block, which is very, very nice that they have these built in there. So since we're looking at 2 7/8 by 5 1/4, so I'm going to progressively trim off either side. So here we go, make sure I have that lined up right. I'm going to put it right, I think I'm going to put it right there, trim there, and then I want 2 7/8, so there's a little bit that needs to be trimmed off this way. Oops, this mat has seen better days. There we go. But I need 2 7/8, so let's see, 2 7/8. So there's so right here, I feel like my fingers are too fat to point to this. Right here is the 7/8, and right here is the 3. So I need 5 1/4 right there by 2 7/8 right here. So now I'm focusing on the edges here to make sure that this is going to line up with 5 1/4 all the way down. That one actually looks a little crooked, so I'm going to redo that side there. And 2 7/8. So I'm going to trim a little bit on this side and this side again, and then also this one ends up looking a little crooked. And I'm still making sure that my center point right here is at 2 5/8. So that, so like when you have the line drawn, it's really nice to be able to mark it up or line it up with 2 5/8 all the way across with your ruler so that it's not getting tilted one way or another. Because flying geese have these seams in there. And so sometimes your ruler can teeter-totter. So, and they don't make a block lock ruler that has for 2 7/8 by 5 1/4. So I'm just going to reline this up. So I'm at 5 1/4, 2 7/8. Trim it here and here. And then since this side is a little crooked, I'm going to redo it on that side. So 5 1/4, 2 7/8. So this is my little extra here that I thought was a little too crooked. So there, I took that off. So there we go. So that's what we're going to do for all of our flying geese. I have this block this month is arranged as a Dutchman's puzzle. But if you want to play with your layout of all your flying geese and you want them in a different direction and you can play with the light and the dark blues, as long as you are sewing 2 of them together to create 1 square, and then you're going to sew 2 squares together, make that a row, and then you're going to sew these 2 squares together, make that a separate row, and then you can join the 2 rows together to yield your 10-inch block. So if you have any questions, please feel free to let us know. I'm more than happy to help. I can't wait to see everybody's projects. Remember, pickup for next month is December 16th and 17th. If you've pre-ordered a setting kit, that will also be available on the 16th and 17th. Let's see, that about wraps up our 2023 program. We have one more month, but we'll see you then.